The air hung heavy in the small English town of Ossett. A storm was brewing, its shadows stretching long and cold across the cobblestone streets.
But the true chill came from within the walls of St. Thames Church. There, amidst frantic prayers and the pungent aroma of incense, Michael Taylor's soul was under siege. Something dark and ancient had sunk its claws into him, and on that night it refused to let go. Michael Taylor was, by all accounts, an ordinary man. He lived a simple life in Ossett with his wife Christine and their 5 young children. He worked diligently at the local tyre factory, the rhythmic clang of machinery a constant in his life. He was a devout Christian, a regular at St. Thames, his voice a steady baritone in the church choir. But something shifted in the winter of 1974. A darkness crept in, twisting Michael's familiar features into a grotesque mask of fear. The change in Michael was impossible to ignore. His once gentle eyes turned vacant, his gaze distant and troubled. He spoke in tormented whispers, his words laced with a chilling conviction something evil was inside him. At first his claims were met with concern. Doctors were consulted, medications prescribed, but Michael's condition only worsened. Desperate, Christine turned to the church. The Christian Fellowship, a charismatic group known for their fervent beliefs, offered a solution: exorcism. The exorcism was a scene of terrifying chaos. Led by the fiery Reverend Peter Vincent, the group gathered around Michael. The air crackled with tension as prayers filled the church, punctuated by Michael's guttural growls and violent convulsions. His body contorted in unnatural ways, his screams echoing off the stained glass windows. The entity within Michael, they claimed, was a powerful demon, one that clung to him with terrifying strength. Hours stretched into a night of relentless spiritual warfare. The exorcism raged until dawn, leaving the church in disarray. Exhausted and shaken, the group believed they had vanquished the demon. But their relief was short-lived. That same night, a blood-curdling scream shattered the quiet of the Taylor home. Neighbours rushed to find a scene of unimaginable horror. Christine lay lifeless on the floor, her body mangled, her eyes staring vacantly into the darkness. Standing over her, covered in blood, was Michael. His eyes, devoid of recognition, held a chilling emptiness. The trial of Michael Taylor was a media sensation. The prosecution painted a picture of a brutal murder, fueled by Michael's descent into madness. The defense countered with a chilling possibility: demonic possession. The courtroom became a battleground for faith and reason, the jury left to grapple with the impossible. Could an evil force truly drive a man to such horrific acts, or was Michael simply a man consumed by the darkness within his own mind? The verdict, when it came, did little to quell the unease that had settled over Ossett. Michael Taylor was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was confined to Broadmoor Hospital, a high-security psychiatric facility. He remained there for years, haunted by the memory of that night, the details forever seared into his mind. The town of Ossett, too, struggled to move on. The spectre of Michael Taylor's exorcism lingered, a chilling reminder of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of the ordinary. St. Thames Church, once a place of solace, stood silent, its pews empty, its air thick with unspoken fear. The case of Michael Taylor remains a chilling enigma, a stark reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. Was he truly possessed by a malevolent entity, driven to violence by an unseen force? Or was his act a horrifying manifestation of a mind consumed by illness? There are no easy answers, only unsettling questions that linger like shadows in the night. The line between sanity and madness, between the spiritual and the psychological, remains blurred. And the chilling events of that night in Ossett continue to cast a long, dark shadow over the nature of good and evil. The town of Ossett was never the same after the events of that fateful night. The townsfolk whispered in hushed tones, their eyes filled with fear and suspicion. The once bustling streets grew quiet, and the air seemed to carry a perpetual chill. The Taylor children, now orphans, were taken in by relatives, but the shadow of their father's actions loomed large over their lives. The local church, once a place of solace, became a symbol of dread. The story of Michael Taylor became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the thin line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. The police investigation into Christine Taylor's death was thorough and meticulous. Forensic experts combed through the Taylor home, piecing together the events of that horrific night. The evidence painted a grim picture, but there were anomalies that defied explanation. The autopsy revealed injuries that seemed almost inhuman, and the crime scene bore signs of a struggle that no ordinary man could have caused. The investigators were left with more questions than answers, and the case file grew thicker with each passing day. As detectives delved deeper, they uncovered a twisted tapestry of events leading up to the tragedy. Interviews with friends and neighbours painted a picture of a man unraveling, gripped by forces beyond comprehension. The whispers of possession, once dismissed as mere superstition, now took on a chilling plausibility. Despite their efforts, the police could not shake the feeling that something otherworldly had transpired in the Taylor household. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, the trail grew cold. The once intense media scrutiny faded, and the town of Ossett was left with a haunting mystery. The unanswered questions lingered, casting long shadows over the community. The investigation officially concluded, but for those who had been touched by the horror, the search for truth would never truly end. The story of Michael Taylor's exorcism and the subsequent murder of his wife captured the attention of the media. Reporters from across the country descended on Ossett, eager to uncover every detail of the chilling tale. Headlines screamed of demonic possession and brutal murder, and the public was gripped by a morbid fascination. The Taylor family became unwilling celebrities, their lives dissected and scrutinized by strangers. The media circus added to the town's unease, and the line between fact and fiction began to blur. Every news outlet wanted a piece of the story, each one sensationalizing the events to capture the audience's attention. The airwaves buzzed with speculation and fear, further clouding the already murky waters of truth. The constant media presence turned the quiet town into a hive of activity, disrupting the lives of its residents and casting a shadow over their everyday existence. Neighbours who once spoke in hushed tones now found themselves bombarded with questions, their words twisted and taken out of context. The relentless pursuit of the next big headline left no room for compassion or understanding, only a relentless drive to feed the public's insatiable appetite for horror. As the weeks went on, the media's grip tightened, and the story took on a life of its own. The facts became secondary to the narrative being spun, and the true nature of the events that transpired in the Taylor household became lost in the noise. For the people of Ossett, the media frenzy was a second wave of trauma, a relentless reminder of the darkness that had descended upon their town. The cameras eventually moved on, but the scars they left behind would be felt for years to come. The events took a heavy toll on those involved. The members of the Christian fellowship who had participated in the exorcism were haunted by nightmares and plagued by guilt. Reverend Peter Vincent, who had led the ritual, found his faith shaken to its core. He questioned whether they had truly vanquished a demon or if they had simply driven a man to madness. The psychological scars ran deep, and many sought therapy to cope with the trauma. The town of Ossett, too, struggled to heal, its collective psyche forever altered. The once tight-knit community found itself fractured as trust and normalcy became elusive. Residents who had lived their lives in quiet simplicity now faced a haunting, ever-present shadow. Conversations turned to whispered confessions of sleepless nights and anxiety. The local church, once a pillar of comfort and unity, became a reminder of the darkness that had been unleashed. Reverend Vincent, in particular, bore a heavy burden. His nights were filled with visions of the exorcism, and he wrestled with the weight of his decisions. Did they truly confront an evil force, or was it their own actions that unleashed the horror? These questions gnawed at his soul, leaving him adrift in a sea of doubt. For the members of the Christian fellowship, their faith was both a source of solace and a reminder of their ordeal. Some found strength in their beliefs while others drifted away, unable to reconcile their experiences with their faith. The psychological toll extended beyond the individuals directly involved. The entire town of Ossett grappled with a collective trauma, its once serene streets now tinged with an air of unease. The community's journey to recovery would be long and arduous as they sought to rebuild their lives in the wake of the unimaginable. The scars left by the events were not just physical, but etched deep into the minds and hearts of those who had lived through them. As the town of Ossett struggled to move forward, the shadow of that fateful night would forever linger, a constant reminder of the fragility of their peace. As the psychological toll weighed heavily on Ossett, the case of Michael Taylor attracted the attention of paranormal investigators and demonologists from far and wide. They descended on the small town, armed with an array of equipment and theories, each eager to uncover the truth behind the possession that had shaken the community to its core. Some of these investigators claimed to have captured compelling evidence of supernatural activity. They presented recordings of eerie voices, unexplained cold spots, and strange electromagnetic readings. These findings fueled the belief that Michael Taylor had indeed been possessed by a malevolent force, and that the town of Ossett was a hotspot for paranormal occurrences. On the other side of the debate, skeptics and mental health professionals debunked these claims, arguing that the entire affair was a tragic case of mental illness and delusion. They contended that the so-called evidence was nothing more than the result of overactive imaginations and faulty equipment. The debate between believers and skeptics raged on, with no definitive answers in sight. The presence of the paranormal investigators added another layer of complexity to an already convoluted story. The once quiet town of Ossett found itself thrust into the spotlight, becoming a focal point for those seeking to prove or disprove the existence of the supernatural. As the investigators continued their work, the townspeople watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. For some, the attention offered a glimmer of hope that the truth might finally be uncovered. For others, it was a painful reminder of the nightmare they had endured. In the end, the question of whether Michael Taylor had been possessed or simply driven to madness remained unanswered. The investigators departed, leaving behind a town forever changed by their presence. The shadow of that fateful night lingered on, a constant reminder of the fragility of peace and the mysteries that still haunted Ossett. The legacy of Michael Taylor's exorcism and the murder of his wife endured long after the events themselves. Books were written, documentaries were filmed, and the story became a part of local folklore. The Taylor children grew up with the weight of their father's actions hanging over them, their lives forever marked by the tragedy. The town of Ossett, too, carried the burden of its dark history. The event served as a grim reminder of the unknown forces that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life, and the story of Michael Taylor became a cautionary tale for generations to come. In the years that followed, the Taylor case became a subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. Researchers delved into the details, trying to piece together what had truly happened on that fateful night. Some saw it as a clear case of demonic possession, while others viewed it as a tragic manifestation of mental illness. As time went on, the lines between fact and fiction blurred, and the story took on a life of its own. For the people of Ossett, the memory of the Taylor family was a constant presence. The house where the tragedy occurred stood as a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. It became a place of pilgrimage for those fascinated by the paranormal, and a source of unease for the locals who remembered the events all too well. The Taylor children, now adults, struggled to find their place in a world that could never fully understand the depth of their pain. They sought solace in different ways. Some turned to faith, others to therapy, but all carried the scars of their father's actions. Their story was a testament to the enduring impact of trauma and a reminder that some wounds never fully heal. As the years passed, the legend of Michael Taylor became a part of Ossett's identity. It was a story told around campfires, whispered in hushed tones, and studied by those seeking to understand the darker aspects of human nature. The town itself became a symbol of resilience, a place where the shadows of the past were acknowledged but not allowed to define the future. In the end, the legacy of Michael Taylor was a complex tapestry of fear, sorrow, and resilience. It was a story that reminded us of the thin line between sanity and madness, and the mysterious forces that can shape our lives in ways we may never fully comprehend. As the investigation deepened, hidden truths began to surface, revealing a web of deceit and dark secrets that had been buried for years. The Taylor family, once seen as an ordinary household, was now exposed to have been grappling with issues far beyond the public's understanding. Confidential records hinted at Michael Taylor's troubled past, filled with moments of unexplained rage and despair. Friends and family members who had remained silent for years came forward, sharing stories of strange occurrences and unsettling behaviors. The church, too, was not immune to scrutiny. Whispers of controversial practices and unorthodox rituals began to emerge, painting a picture of a community struggling with its own demons. The deeper the investigators dug, the more they realized that the exorcism was just the tip of the iceberg. There were layers of complexity, involving not just the Taylors, but the entire town of Ossett. Hidden alliances, unresolved conflicts, and long-standing grievances started to unravel, each thread revealing another piece of the puzzle. As these hidden truths came to light, the narrative of Michael Taylor's case shifted once again. It was no longer just a story of possession or mental illness, it was a story of a community haunted by its own secrets, a reminder that sometimes the darkest truths are the ones we hide from ourselves. In the end, the uncovering of these hidden truths brought a sense of closure to some, while leaving others with more questions than answers. The legacy of Michael Taylor was now more complex than ever, a tapestry of fear, sorrow, resilience, and the ever-present shadow of the unknown. As the final confrontation between good and evil reached its peak, Michael Taylor found himself at the center of an unimaginable battle. The air was thick with tension, each breath a struggle as he faced the ultimate test of his faith and willpower. Shadows danced around him, their forms shifting and warping with malevolent intent. In an isolated room, dimly lit by flickering candles, the exorcist stood firm, reciting powerful prayers and incantations. His voice echoed through the space, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. Michael's body convulsed violently, his face contorted in agony as he fought to regain control. The demon's grip tightened, its whispers growing louder, more insistent. Images of his family flashed before his eyes. His wife, his children, reminders of the life he once knew, now slipping away. Desperation fueled his resolve, and with a surge of inner strength, Michael began to push back. His screams filled the room, a primal cry that seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. The exorcist's voice grew louder, more commanding as he called upon divine forces to aid in the struggle. The walls seemed to close in, the air crackling with energy. Michael's eyes locked onto the exorcist's, a silent plea for salvation. In that moment, a blinding light erupted, engulfing the room in a radiant glow. The shadows recoiled, their sinister forms dissipating into the ether. Michael's body went limp, collapsing to the floor as the oppressive weight lifted from his soul. Silence descended, broken only by the laboured breaths of those present. The exorcist knelt beside Michael, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's over," he whispered, though the words felt hollow. The battle had been won, but the scars would remain. Michael Taylor had faced the darkness and emerged, but the cost had been great. As the light slowly faded, the room returned to its dim, candlelit state, a solemn reminder of the ordeal they had just endured. The final confrontation had ended, but the echoes of that night would linger, a testament to the enduring struggle between light and shadow, faith and despair. In the aftermath of the exorcism, the community struggled to come to terms with the events that had transpired, leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved. Stock video, aerial shot of a quiet, desolate village at dawn. The once peaceful village now bore the scars of a battle unseen by most, yet felt by all. Stock video aerial shot of the village transitioning to a close-up of the streets. The streets, usually bustling with life, were now eerily silent. Stock video close-up of a church exterior, its doors closed. The cobblestone paths where children once played seemed haunted by the echoes of that fateful night. Stock video close-up of the church interior showing empty pews. The church, a place of solace for so many, stood as a solemn sentinel, its doors closed to the curious and the fearful alike. Stock video. A group of villagers gathered, talking in hushed tones. Inside, the pews bore witness to whispered prayers and quiet sobs, each one a plea for understanding and peace. Stock video. A group of villagers gathered, talking in hushed tones. Families gathered in small groups, their faces etched with worry and confusion. Stock video. Close-up of villagers' worried expressions. Conversations were held in hushed tones, as if speaking too loudly might summon the darkness once more. Stock video. A woman lighting a candle in a dimly lit room. Many turned to their faith, lighting candles and offering prayers in the hope of finding some semblance of comfort. Stock video. A close-up of a candle flame flickering. The exorcist, now a reluctant hero, found himself both revered and questioned, his actions scrutinized by those seeking answers. Stock video. A man sitting alone, staring into the distance. For Michael Taylor, the days that followed were a blur of emotions. Stock video. A close-up of Michael's face showing his turmoil. Relief at having survived, guilt for the pain inflicted, and a deep abiding sorrow for the innocents lost. Stock video. A wide shot of Michael staring into the distance. He often found himself staring into the distance, haunted by memories of the ordeal. Stock video. A family embracing, tears in their eyes. His family too bore the weight of his struggle. Stock video. A close-up of family members holding each other tightly. They clung to each other, finding strength in their shared bond, yet knowing that things would never be the same. Stock video. A shadowy image of the village at night. The shadow of that night loomed large, a constant reminder of the fragility of their world. Stock video. A therapist's office, a patient talking to a counsellor. Counsellors and therapists became an integral part of the community, offering support to those grappling with the psychological toll. Stock video. A close-up of a therapist listening intently. It was a long road to recovery with no clear end in sight. Stock video. A sunrise over the village, symbolizing hope. But as the days turned to weeks, a sense of resilience began to emerge. Stock video. A close-up of a flower blooming. The village, though scarred, was not broken. Stock video. A wide shot of the village at dawn. Hope flickered like the first light of dawn, fragile yet persistent. The aftermath of the exorcism had left an indelible mark on the community, but it also brought them closer together. Stock video. A group of villagers holding hands. In their shared pain, they found a strength that would guide them through the darkness towards the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Stock video. Aerial shot of the village at dusk. As time marched on, the legacy of Michael Taylor's exorcism continued to haunt the town. Stock video. A group of children playing near the church, their laughter tinged with unease. New generations grew up hearing the chilling tale, whispered in hushed tones by their elders. Stock video. A teenager reading an old newspaper clipping about the exorcism. The story was passed down, a cautionary tale of the shadows that lurk just beyond the edge of understanding. Stock video close-up of an old weathered book about exorcisms. Books and articles kept the memory alive, each retelling adding layers to the mystery and fear. Stock video. A group of teenagers gathered around a campfire, listening intently to a storyteller. Around campfires, the younger ones would listen, eyes wide with a mix of fascination and dread. Stock video. A close-up of a teenager's face showing a range of emotions. For some, the story became a source of nightmares, a haunting reminder of the darkness that once gripped their community. Stock video. A teacher in a classroom discussing the history of the village. In classrooms, it was a topic of discussion, a part of the town's history that could not be ignored. Stock video. A close-up of a student's hand taking notes. Students took notes, trying to make sense of the inexplicable events. Stock video. A family gathered around a dinner table, the parents talking seriously while the children listened. At dinner tables, parents would share their experiences, their voices tinged with both fear and reverence. Stock video. A close-up of a parent's face showing concern. They spoke of the importance of faith, of vigilance, and of the unseen forces that shape our lives. Stock video. A church service, the congregation deep in prayer. The church, once a battleground, became a place of renewed faith and devotion. Stock video, a close-up of the church's stained glass windows. Its stained glass windows, depicting scenes of hope and redemption, served as a reminder of the light that can emerge from the darkest of times. Stock video, a group of villagers gathered in a community meeting. Community meetings were held to discuss the lasting impact, to ensure that the lessons learned would not be forgotten. Stock video, a close-up of an elderly villager speaking passionately. Elders spoke passionately, urging the younger generation to remember and to be cautious. Stock video, a wide shot of the village at sunset. The village, though forever changed, found a way to move forward, its spirit unbroken. Stock video, a close-up of a flower blooming, symbolizing resilience. The legacy of that fateful night became a part of their identity, a testament to their resilience and their capacity for hope. Stock video, a wide shot of the village at dawn, symbolizing a new beginning. And as the sun rose each day, it carried with it the promise of a brighter, stronger future.